up on a Thursday edition of Club 904. First things first, I'm going to make sure our YouTube audience is rocking and rolling live here at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll get those technical difficulties sorted. After that, opening monologue, reacting to Liam Coen and James Gladstone's final comments of the 2025 season, what it could mean for the 2026 offseason. And then the main event, Lindsay Rhodes of Sumer Sports stops by. We're going to look back at the Bills game thanks to Sumer Live, their new feature at sumersports.com. We're going to look at some tendencies that we saw from the Jaguars against Buffalo, what it could mean long-term in Jacksonville as James Gladstone and Liam Coen get ready for year 2 of this build here in Duval County. It's going to be a fun one. Don't go anywhere. Club 904 is going up on a Thursday. What is going on, party people? Mia O'Brien here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Most of you currently with us are either on Twitch or not TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever we call it these days, Facebook and Twitch. If you'll bear with me momentarily, we're going to make sure our friends over on YouTube are hanging out with us here in Club 904 on this fine Thursday in Duval County. It is January 15th in the year of our Lord 2026. We're going to talk 2025, but we're also going to look ahead to 2026, both with the comments from Liam Coen and James Gladstone at the press conference on new event. There we go. Nope, we don't want that. We're switching our title. Stand by, folks. I told you this is the fun of live streams, television, all the good stuff we got going. 1 second. There we go. We got this. We got that. Here we go. We're going to update Restream. And that way you guys can leave your comments on YouTube because this is an interactive program. As much as I did previously record our interview with Lindsay, we will be reacting to that live. We've saved some time for Q&A. We also had time for, here we go. We're going to save. Okay. Well, we're going to see how this goes, folks. We're going to turn on YouTube and we're going to see what happens. All right. Hopefully, yep, it says you guys are with us. So hopefully you guys are with us on YouTube. Thanks for rolling with the punches here on this Thursday of Club 904. Like I mentioned, here's the layout of today's show. And thank you again for rolling with the punches. Hopefully our friends on YouTube can hang out with us live now for the next hour, especially getting that intel from Lindsay. We're going to start my comments, my thoughts from Liam Coen, James Gladstone's press conference on Wednesday. It is Thursday. We've had about 24 hours to marinate on some of those comments. Then you'll hear from Lindsay after our first break. Then after that, we'll come back. We'll hit any questions you have from our conversation with her before we get on out of here for the rest of the lineup on this Thursday on Action Sports Jax 24/7 Network. As always, make sure you like and subscribe to our friends at Action Sports Jax and also check out the O'Brien NFL Notebook. That is the official website for scoops and what have you from yours truly. And of course, memberships start at $5 per month. Free 7-day trial is ongoing. All right, my thoughts from Liam Coen and James Gladstone's press conference. Number one, and I think this will be the headliner nationally wherever you go, Travis Hunter will have an emphasis at the defensive back position by default, as James Gladstone said, if you look at expiring contracts. When he says that, number one, that suggests that Travis will be in a spotlight role, a headlining role in the secondary for the Jags. I thought Austin made a really great point when he joined us on Tuesday's edition of the program when he said, was there any moment in time during this past season in which you said, man, I wish we had Travis Hunter on offense when he was out after his season-ending knee injury, comparatively to, man, if we had Travis Hunter on defense, X, Y, and Z. And so I think that in and of itself, that little notion suggests that, number one, that's where you're going to see him featured in 2026. But also, what does that mean about the status of Greg Newsome, Buster Brown, those pending free agents? It doesn't bode well, but I think especially with Buster, you probably reach a team-friendly deal. Given Newsome's pedigree as a pretty highly touted draft pick out of Northwestern once upon a time, I do think if you're the Jags, the expectation is he'll get a deal from somewhere, and then potentially you get a comp pick. More on that here in just a second. I also enjoyed James's comments at the end of the presser when he brought up Kyron Williams, Quentin Lake, guys that he drafted alongside Les Snead in LA that did not really make an impact in their rookie season, but are now considered among the best at their position in the NFL and have already earned contract extensions. And to that point, that was in defense of the Caleb Ransaw, Wyatt Milam third-round picks. And he brought up Jalen McLeod as well. We'll get to that here in a second. But the Ransaw pick in particular, is one that I know so many of you have earmarked, especially because he was taken prior to Xavier Watts by the Atlanta Falcons. Respect to that. Xavier Watts had an incredible rookie campaign, but it will be interesting to see. Number one, I think that Ransaw's return all but signals that Dewey Wingard's watch has ended in Jacksonville, unless I'm misspoken and there's something I don't know about, because Eric Murray will be on the books. Obviously, Antonio Johnson is still on the books. He ascended in year 3. And then you've got Rayon Lane, who you drafted in the 6th round last year. So maybe they bring Dewey back. But at this point in time, knowing the pieces you have, I would assume that it's Ransaw's job to lose. But do the Jaguars also go out and draft another safety? Because this is considered a rich safety class. And they say, all right, we got Eric Murray one more season to be that salty vet. Antonio Johnson's in a contract year. They could move on from him. And now all of a sudden you're looking at a world, if you don't add depth, 2 years from now, you've got Ransaw, you've got Lane, and that's it at the safety position. So that's going to be one to monitor. But I would think at this point in time, they have cleared the deck for the former Tulane and Troy product to be starting in his 2nd season and his first really on the grass. I thought the McLeod comment was interesting, but I think that that'll be something we'll talk about all off season. Is he the replacement for Yasir Abdullah as a special teams ace, although Yasir still has a year left on his rookie contract? Or is he the new Dennis Gardick? I don't know. I'd like to see Dennis Gardick still on the Jaguars jersey next year. I think they would as well. So that one will be interesting to see where he is slotted in, but he was a player that Gladstone brought up at the press conference, which I thought was interesting. I also thought the comments surrounding Parker Washington, Brenton Strange, a contract extension, not definitive, but the word alignment was used both when regarding those players as well as Trayvon Walker and the need to stay aligned with those players moving forward. And that is where, when you see these trade rumors floated of Trayvon Walker potentially being dealt prior to a long-term extension being done in Jacksonville, he is, as of this writing, going to play on the 5th-year option next year, which Trayvon has told me he gets paid when he gets paid, and the price of the buck just keeps going up because everyone else is getting paid on the market, so that helps his cause as he continues to ascend as a player himself. But I know that there is at least one column that's floating around right now, and that's an opinion piece about making a trade that would involve Trayvon Walker to acquire Max Crosby's services. I will not speak specifically to that scenario, but I will tell you that from the moment that the season ended, remember when James Gladstone said last year that they would be bold before anyone knew they were going to trade up for Travis Hunter in the draft? They will be bold this offseason too. Just file that one away. Just file that one. I'm not saying they're trading for Max Crosby. Don't go put that on the record. But just know, much like when the phones were being worked last March, phones are already being worked here in January. I want to end on 2 other notes. First and foremost, the offensive line quote from James Gladstone. I thought that was pretty telling, although maybe it's a smokescreen. I'm sure some of you are hoping it's a smokescreen because for whatever the reason you want to run certain offensive linemen out of town and whatever, that's your prerogative. These are 2 men in James and Liam who were a part of that 2022 Rams group that after winning the Super Bowl the year prior saw their entire offensive line decimated by injuries. They did not have the depth that's a necessity at the time 2022 in the National Football League. And so they're scarred by that. So I think that when he says right now we're in a position where everyone who played for us along the O-line is coming back to us next season, he means that because they both have been affected by the depth or lack thereof. But I also think it's a shrewd play in case there is a buyer for a Walker Little or anybody else along that offensive line, because they do also hope that Wyatt Milam takes the next step. And yes, he is a guard, I am told, moving forward, not a tackle, as some may have suggested. The final note from me, and I keep saying it, I know there's some of you out there who are, 2017 was one and done. 2018 was one and done. Or not 2018, 2017 was one and done too. 2017 and 2022 were one and done. Doug Marrone, Doug Peterson, they win playoff games in their first year in their tenure as head coach, and they never go back to the postseason. Liam Coen yesterday, I was sitting in the front row. Liam Coen still looks like someone who is not depressed, but he is angry. He was glazed over. He still thinks that he should be coaching this weekend against the New England Patriots. Should be going home to New England to go face the team he grew up rooting for. And that I can tell you, I was not here at the beginning of the 2018 calendar year when the Jaguars lost to the aforementioned Patriots in the AFC title game, but I was here later in that season. And I was here in 22. It's a different look from a Jaguars head coach. With all due respect to the Dugs, there's a reason the one is still my cover photo. I have immense respect for both Marone and for Peterson, but this cat's already itching to go, folks. And that's a good thing. Quick plugs before we get out of here. Speaking of Liam Coen, as Brent mentioned, as they were getting out of here on the Brent and Austin show this morning, All Access with Liam Coen, Jaguars All Access, is tonight on Fox 30, as well as here on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. It is at String Sports Brewery, Jack's Beach. So if you want to go see Liam Coen in action, hang out with him, see the whole family, go check out Jack's Beach's Strings Sports Brewery. And as we're on the subject of plugs, do want to shout out Peter Schrager of ESPN Omaha Productions, the Schrager podcast that he did with Liam Coen. If you haven't listened to it yet, should be required listening. And then our friend Jeff Howe, who's joined us here on Club 904 before from The Athletic, who went to college with Liam and has now done a great job in profiling the first-year coach. We're already behind on schedule because of those damn technical difficulties. I hope our YouTube audience can hear us right now. I'm going to make sure you guys can't. We're going to take a quick timeout, and when we return, Lindsay Rhodes, Sports, going to join us to look back at the Bills' loss, yes, but look the tendencies, the data, and project forward into Liam Coen's second year at the helm of the Jaguars.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers. And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Most of us know how to throw. But you need to know what to throw. I'm not talking about footballs, baseballs, softballs. We're talking about those items you need to recycle. Republic Services explains it easy. Recycling simplified. 1. Know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. 2. Empty, clean, and dry those materials. It takes an extra minute, but it makes a big difference. And 3. Don't bag it. This makes the recycling process faster and more efficient. This is a look at the Republic Services North Florida Recycling Center. You can make this process even more efficient. By utilizing those 3 steps, Republic Services can help you become a better recycler in your home. Learn more at recyclingsimplified.com.
If you look good, you feel good. And the medical professionals here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics are here to make you feel your best. I'm on camera every week, and I have a confession to make. I'm not always confident in my appearance. Can you see my dark circles? Is my makeup highlighting my fine lines instead of covering them up? I question it all. So when I found out about the wide variety of procedures here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics, I knew help was just one appointment away. Medical Director Dr. Megan Deacon Casey and her board-certified physicians have been using the latest in cutting-edge technology for the last 10 years, giving men and women their personal confidence boost. From Botox, fillers, Morpheus 8, and so much more. The hardest part was figuring out what I needed. Thankfully, the medical team walked me through what would work best for me through a free consultation. Come look and feel your best with the team here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Visit them at one of their 2 locations, either over in Ponte Vedra or on the south side.
Excited to welcome for the first time here into Club 904, the one and only Lindsay Rhodes, host at Sumer Sports. So excited to dive into not just the numbers from the Jaguars 2025 season, but to see your beautiful face, Lindsay, here in the club on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. How are you? How is your playoff season going? Or playoff-uary, excuse me, as the Dr. Pepper commercials like to call it.
It's been great. It was a fun season. I feel like it was a weird season in the sense that like it felt kind of very different from seasons past, which I think is fun to a degree, but also sort of weird. Normally you have teams that really emerge as like, here are the 3 dominant teams in this conference, and here are the 3 dominant teams in this conference. And it felt like that didn't take hold as much this year. It felt like there was more parity, but also less like really high-end elite strength from a team standpoint. But that makes the playoffs fun. Like there are so many matchups. Bills Jaguars, perfect example of just like really evenly matched matchups. And even the Rams Panthers, I mean, I think the Rams just ran into a matchup that like for whatever reason is just a weird matchup for them. The Panthers play them so well and so smartly, and so we've had some really good games over the weekend, so that's great.
For those who may be unfamiliar, and we are going to show you guys the live stats that Sumer has now introduced for each and every playoff game. And moving forward, we're going to actually show you that here on today's episode. But Lindsay, for those who may be unfamiliar with Sumer Sports, maybe they know you from your previous work, let them know. What are you guys cooking up? Because man, oh man, are you guys cooking things up over there?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this particular development. We're calling it Sumer Live, and it is a live dashboard of advanced stats that you can track as the game is going on. So if you want to keep a second screen up to just kind of see how the team is doing, sadly for Jaguars fans, could have done that this past weekend. Moving forward, you'll have to like maybe play around with some trends that you are observing in the other playoff games, coverage rates, like route tendencies, personnel data. You know, looking at like Rams and Seahawks are 2 teams that we've been tracking the tight end usage all season long. But I've also noticed that there's an inability to come up with those numbers when they're live in game. So you're just sort of trying to take mental notes, like how many times have they had multiple tight ends on the field? That's hard for an average fan to track as the game is going on. And so we have a dashboard that has all of those advanced numbers sort of on the same side of this, on the right side of the screen, whereas the left side of the screen is a play-by-play. And it updates all of these totals in real time. It'll give you efficiency metrics like EPA for all of these different categories in real time as soon as the game, not the game is over, as soon as the play is over. Like each play, the numbers will change. It's something that just as a user, I have felt was missing in the market. And I'm so excited that we had the right kind of development team in place that could put it together and make it come to life. And I think that, you know, Jaguars fans that are listening to this, if you're going to sit on the couch and watch these playoff games next weekend, I suggest you give it a try because I think it's actually rad.
And it's not only rad, it is free, folks. So
Free!
all the more reason that you want to check it out.
That.
If it is free, it is good for me. But also, in addition to that, Lindsay, as much as I just was hearing from some Jags fans who said they haven't even gone on Twitter since the Jaguars lost 27-24 to the Bills. At the same time, I do think as we reflect upon the 2025 season and that one and done playoff exit, I said, who better to talk to than Lindsay and actually go inside the numbers, what we saw that Liam Coen, Anthony Campanelli deployed against the Bills, and maybe how that links to some of the personnel usage we saw throughout the course of the season, not just in Jacksonville, but throughout the National Football League. And so without further ado, we're not just going to tell you about Sumer Sports. You can still access, folks, the numbers from Sunday's playoff game. This is in live real time. And so Lindsay and I are going to scroll through, kind of show you what there is to offer when it comes to the personnel usage for both the Bills and the Jaguars and some of the tendencies from offense, defense, the different run schemes that were deployed by both teams.
My favorite, if you scroll down, I think it's just visually, it's for the run game for tendencies. If you scroll all the way down to the last thing, there you go. Oh wait, no, sorry, it's still a little bit more down.
So a little more. There
you go. Run game, and then click on underneath that by gap.
By gap. Oh, over here,
under rushing performance by gap.
Oh, yes. I didn't even know that this was here.
Look at that.
Oh, my.
Like, I mean, I think that that's a cool visual. And also, so we'll tell you, like, what gaps are they having success against from a run game standpoint? And that paints a picture about where your offensive line strengths are in various ways. Like, there's lots of different ways to look at some of this stuff, but this is one of my favorites.
This is incredible. I didn't even know that there was this additional little tab as I've been like messing around with the Sumer Sports Live and Sumer Live over the last few days. So here we are. And look, you guys are getting to see it in real time, although not real time for the Jaguars game. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, Lindsay. When it came to the Jaguars discrepancy between the run and the pass, Liam Coen held firm that
he didn't think that it was that much of an issue. Certainly, I think some national analysts have said, you're going against the 31st ranked run defense, handing Bashal Tootin the ball just 4 times when he's averaging over 10 yards a carry. And he's the first running back since Arian Foster to go 3 straight plays with 10 plus yards on the ground. And Travis Etienne, just 10 carries, also averaged more than 6 yards, per tote. So what did you make? And is there a number here that as we look ahead into 2026, whether or not Travis Etienne is here, that you say, hey, Jags, that run game that we didn't see during that 8-game win streak all that much, it wasn't broken. You just have to choose and place an emphasis on it.
So you and I went back and forth actually about this, because my first instinct during the game was not necessarily to think about the run pass ratio, though I know that a lot of Jags fans think that should have run the ball more down the stretch. And I understand that. There was that one drive where Tootin just like popped off every single time you handed him the ball. So he had those 3 carries at 15 plus a pop on average in the first quarter. And then he finished with just 4 carries for the game and none in the second half. My first instinct was to wonder if he was hurt. So if that has been a question that's asked and the answer is no, then I do think that it is interesting that they didn't go back to him. I feel like I remember a moment where he looked like he may have been hurt. And so I think that that's why I created that narrative in my head of the fact that he wasn't available to them, because it made no sense for him to literally not be a part of the run game anymore. In terms of run pass ratio, though, moving away from the Tootin aspect of this, I thought that I didn't think that their run pass ratio was particularly dramatic. Like a 58% pass rate to 42% run is right around, I think, where you want to be. I think, and I know that you mentioned that the Bills defense is particularly weak against stopping the run. And so there's that to factor in there. I just don't know that you want to go into a game and just run the ball primarily. And I don't think that most NFL teams do that. That's because of what you can do from a passing game standpoint, as opposed to like on average. Like for instance, the Jaguars this year, their passing yards per play was 6 yards and their rushing yards per play was 4 yards. And that's when I say passing yards per play, I mean literally like every pass attempt. That's not even just catches. So every time they drop back to throw and threw, they averaged 6 yards. So it's just more efficient to throw the ball than it is to pass the ball. There are tons of reasons why you run the ball anyway, and we can get to that part of the conversation. But I didn't necessarily think that it was egregious in this game. And if you go through in the Sumer Live, you can, where it says full game under Buffalo Bills, if you make it Jaguars, and then you go quarter by quarter and you scroll down to just run pass ratio, I didn't think that it dropped off. It wasn't like, oh, they stopped using it. It was pretty consistent the entire game. So I think that the reason that people felt this way, some of those runs, though, that do count as runs were Trevor Lawrence, and they were probably him scrambling on plays that were meant to be passes, and then they broke down and he runs with the ball, right? So that ends up making the rushing total maybe look a little bit more strong in terms of usage than it actually was. But their pass EPA was -6 in the first half. And so if you, and I'll just show you so if you just go to passing, which I think, there, and then I'm sorry. I think if you scroll up to the passing, there you go, that part that we just went through, see where it says -5.9.
Yes.
Sorry, up.
Let's keep scrolling. We got it.
There you go. Okay, so that. In the first half, which is a tab that you can pull down, it was -6 on 15 attempts. Their pass EPA in the second half was +7.
Wow.
And their rush EPA in both halves, first half and second half, was exactly the same. It was 0.37 positive. So it's good that it was positive. But clearly you can see the disparity there in the second half in terms of expected points added, which is, and I know a lot of people don't understand EPA. If you fall into that category, at its most base, it is an efficiency metric. It's telling you how efficiently you and productively you moved the ball. Like, not all yards are created equal, right? Like, if it's a 3rd and 4, you need 5. If it's 3rd and 10, 8 isn't better than 5, right? From the previous scenario. So it's measuring how well you did based on the circumstances of what you needed to do in order to get more downs and have a better chance. So these numbers suggest that their approach in the second half was the right approach.
To throw the ball and to not go back to Bashal too, and not to try to emphasize that run game. And so that's very interesting, statistically speaking, that the passing game was having success. And as we've continued to say here over the last 72 hours in Duval, this idea of if you're going to the prom, you got to dance with the boy or the gal who got you there. And Trevor Lawrence in the passing game was a big reason why Jacksonville was a 13-4 outfit during the regular season. Now, let's stay on Trevor and the passing attack for a split second longer, Lindsay, because I was genuinely surprised to see just 12.9% of his passes were off of play action. Is that the same number that you have as well? Just because he's been pretty darn good off play action. We all know when he rolls to his right or his left, coming off of an RPO, like, we know that Trevor Lawrence has the ability to not only be a threat to run and scramble, but also just how good he is when he rolls out to either side.
And then also it takes some of those passes that go down as pass attempts, but it makes them look like runs. And I know I'm explaining this in the most basic way, but to the point of if you feel like you needed to run the ball more, there are ways to get what you wanted out of the play in terms of the defensive looks by looking like you're going to run the ball more, right? So that's part of why play action is effective. And to your point, we had a 13% number for them on play action on Sunday. They ranked 17th in the regular season at 25% play action. So this was way below their normal. And okay, I'm going to try to direct you here.
All right,
if you go to passing, there you found it. Look at the passing EPA on play action versus without play action. And it's obviously much greater with play action. So that would suggest that that is a valid criticism. Because I tried to look for, like, why would they have done this? Is there something that's built into what the Bills were doing defensively that would render play action? I just couldn't come up with an answer. So maybe there is an answer, but on the surface, I can't tell a statistical storyline that backs up them not using play action as much as they did.
And I don't know, quick follow-up to that. I don't know if you guys are tracking this, but I noticed in real time, even though Cole Van Lanen wasn't active for this game, and so Walker Little moves from right guard to left tackle, Patrick McCarry battling 2 back injuries is at right guard, it didn't feel like, in the moment at least, and I'd have to go back and look, the Jaguars really didn't deploy a lot of jumbo packages. They had tight end chipping help, but they didn't bring a ton of extra help. And not that you need to bring a 6th offensive lineman onto the field and play action, but the fact that they were just pretty much like, we're going to drop back 5 offensive linemen and Trevor's going to figure it out from there. I don't want to say it was a throwback to the Press Taylor offense, but there were moments where it felt that way on Sunday.
Yeah, and the time to pressure, which is one of the things that we registered there under pass game, is 2.4 for him. That is too fast. Yeah. Right. So
all the way at the top, or where are we going?
In the mid, in the middle where it starts to give out the passing game, it says pass game, and then you scroll down, there's passing performance with all of the EPA metrics. But just the basic pass game one, if you go to full game there, it has, the completions, attempts, passing yards, passing EPA on the game, and then the average time to pressure, time to throw, and the average depth of target. So here I'm seeing 2.4 as the time to pressure for him. And his time to throw is 2.6. So that tells me that he at least understood the situation that he was in. By the way, flip side here, I'm pretty sure that Josh Allen was the only quarterback this weekend who actually had a faster time to throw than time to pressure.
He did 2.6 to 2.5.
And I always think that, and just moving forward, even into next season, this is a stat that I like to track. So I love the fact that we have the ability to do this in real time. I think this tells a story sometimes of the quarterback's awareness of what's happening and how much time he has in the pocket. Like, this was something that stood out to me last season about Baker Mayfield. For a good majority of the season, he was one of the only quarterbacks in the NFL whose time to throw was just under his time to pressure. Almost always the quarterback's time to throw is a little bit longer than the time to pressure. Like, pressure is here, I'm buying some time, boom, get it out there when I have to. And so I think that this generally is like another superpower of Josh Allen's, and also a sign of just like the things that he did in this game are hard. He had a positive EPA against pressure. Some of the things that he did, like, it's like Jacksonville kind of did their job, and then he just put on his cape and made things happen anyway. And, sometimes you just kind of go, what are you going to do? Like, all we can do is play the best that we can. And he just made the plays on this particular day for his team.
So while I agree with that, and I also think the Bills' offensive line is criminally underrated, let's segue now to the defensive side of the ball for the Jaguars. We're recording this on Wednesday. This morning, we met with Liam Coen and James Gladstone, and the question was asked about pressure and whether or not the Jaguars can affect the quarterback moving forward with the group as it currently is constructed. And so obviously Josh Hines-Allen was number 2 in the National Football League in pressures this past year, but the sacks weren't necessarily exactly where you would like them to be in Jacksonville, 26th out of 32 teams in the league. And James Gladstone, I was getting a little worried because he said the same thing that we were told following the 2022 Jaguars playoff run, which is, well, pressures are almost a greater indicator of affecting the quarterback than sacks. And we believe the pressures could turn into sacks. We all looked at each other and we were like, oh no.
No, you guys, I think he's right.
Oh,
this is
good.
So
okay.
Here's, and I hate to interrupt you, but like I started to get like the hard eyes emoji happening here. This is literally what I say all the time to people.
Okay.
And so I'm actually having a moment right now where I'm going, oh my God, he's a general manager who is like,
who gets it?
Kind of, right?
We say that a lot.
I don't want to say like I'm right, so he gets it, but like I think that this is analytically sound. I think this is from a probability standpoint and a prioritization of what you look at when you're evaluating. I am a proponent of, if you want to get to the quarterback, the stat you look at is pressures, not sacks, because so this all boils down to pressures being the process and sacks being the result. And you just can't judge completely on the result, because the result in some cases, particularly as a defensive player or a defense in general, is out of your control sometimes. Because what then happens is, so I can get a pressure. What quarterback am I going up against? Am I going up against a rushing quarterback who's going to flush out of the pocket and buy some extra time? That's on him. That's not on me. Right? Like, now I can chase him down, but I've done my job, and the pressure might have led to a sack if it's Matthew Stafford who's going to stand in the pocket. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but if it's Lamar Jackson or Caleb or one of these guys that's going to flush out and buy some more time, that is an indicator of what his specific strengths or weaknesses are, not about yours. So the sacks a lot of times just tell a story that's sort of beyond your control. Like, or does their offensive line suck? And so you were able to get there fast enough to just collapse the pocket, and there's a sack that's unavoidable for the quarterback. Like, sacks oftentimes tell the story of the offenses that you go against. Pressures tell the story of who you are as a unit. And so if you're consistently getting pressures, the sacks should come. The fact that they did not come just feels like variance. And I know that this is a hard thing for everyone to wrap their brain around. Like, sometimes there's just good luck, bad luck. Sometimes things go in your favor. Like, we talked about this year with the Lions with going forward on 4th down. Last year, same approach. They're outscored their opponents by the widest margin in the NFL by so much. Like, the exact same approach completely and totally worked. And at the beginning of the season, that exact same approach completely and totally worked. They were like 6 for their first 7 4th down attempts or something like that. And they're picking up all sorts of extra scoring opportunities because of it. And then they just hit a stretch where they were like, oh, our last 4 haven't hit. And now people are freaking out because now there's a pattern that's perceived to be a pattern, but really it's just a pattern. It's not an indicator. Like, it just feels like variance, like
Right.
everything is ultimately going to come back to the middle at some point. And sometimes you have a season where you get a lot more lucky breaks, and sometimes you get a season where there's a lot fewer lucky breaks. And I know you want to create your lucky breaks for sure, but I guess that's the only way that I know how to do that is to just put defenders on the line who can create those pressures. And at the very least, there's also statistical evidence that shows that a sack without a sack, what is it? A sack with pressure and like what the average EPA per snap is, and a sack, a snap that is completely clean without pressure. Like, you're already costing that offense. If you get a pressure, you are impacting them and their ability to score. It's just not in a really clearly defined manner, like a sack. A sack ends the play's over. But a lot of times, the pressure, even without a sack, might force them into a bad throw that leads to an interception. It might force them into
field position,
a throwaway. Like, you don't know. We just don't track that in a very specifically measured way. So that's a very long aside to say I actually love that he said that, because it tells me that he's focusing on what we think are the right things to build his defense around.
I love it, because I, unlike some on the internet right now who, because they were fooled in 2017 and fooled in 2022, I do believe what the Jaguars are building on both sides of the ball, independent of whether or not the same personnel and coordinators are there next year. I do think it's sustainable, because to the point of 2022, the Jaguars were top 10 or top 5 in pressures, yet they were struggling in the sack department. There were some other things going on behind the scenes, i.e. Coaches not showing up to practice, as I reported back in the day. So I would think that coupled with some other miscommunication errors and just communication lack thereof in general under that second year under Doug Peterson and the defensive staff that was dismissed at the end of the year, like, I don't want to put it on that, but I also think that potentially could be a reason. And I also think that the fact that then outside linebackers coach Bill Shuey was retained because Josh Hines Allen did have a 17.5 sack season in 2023 following that top pressure year. Maybe it bodes well that we'll see more sacks for JHA in 2026. But the reason I even brought this up, Lindsay, was because I was curious your thoughts. Anthony Campanelli's defense, which I know he was requested to interview for the head coaching position with the Dolphins today. He is the belle of the ball in many's eyes when it comes to being recruited as a head coach, if not this offseason, the next offseason. But I was surprised both in the moment, and I've got the right graph now, in the moment and then seeing it on Sumer Live, at the Jags blitz just 33.3% of the time, which was something that was echoed to me in the locker room last week by players, that their defense was working. They weren't going to change it just because of the Bills and Josh Allen. I do look at this, though, from the 30,000 foot view now. Again, the pressure number being top 10, the sack number not, the blitz number being, where would you say that is league wide?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
So it's 33.3% for blitz rate, which resulted in a 33.3% pressure rate on Sunday. And so I just am curious to see, and I think a lot of this stems from, there was no Travis Hunter in this game. There was no Jordan Lewis. That's something that we talked about here on Club 904 on Tuesday with Austin Lane, because the reality is the Jaguars defense was exceeding expectations without the personnel that they anticipated having when they constructed this roster last year. And I'm curious, so long as Campanelli is back next year, where this defense, in your opinion, has to evolve to where maybe the pressure number is high, maybe the sack number is high. We don't care about that. It results in a top 10 defense in 2026.
By the way, just looking through some of the other blitz rates from this weekend, that's the highest one I've landed on so far.
Wow. Oh, so there we go. All right. I stand corrected, which
Packers
is good to know.
blitzed at a 19% clip. Bears were at 31. Let's look at the Panthers were at 30. The Rams were at 29. And then the Eagles were at 19. Niners were at 29.
Which is always interesting because Campanelli, of course, worked not only for Jeff Hafley in Green Bay, but for Vic Fangio back in Miami as well.
I think from a defensive standpoint, what I'm most interested to see for the Jaguars next year, like if we're looking ahead, is the thing that stood out to me was their rate of man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
They were in man this season at a really low rate. They were 26th league wide at 19% man coverage. I don't know, maybe you do more than I, if this is a preference for the defensive coordinator, or
I think
if
it is. Yeah, I think it is schematically. But again, lots of folks I've spoken to nationally have just been so like the reason that he's the flavor, not just the flavor of the month, but I think a lot of people believe he is the future is because he works not only for Fangio and Halfley, but he also worked for Brian Flores. And so like he is this pathological love child between so many different influences, which ultimately has resulted in that more zone defense. But, and again, I don't want to speak for Coach Camp or Liam. If Travis Hunter had continued to ascend and doesn't suffer that season-ending injury, do you, Lindsay, separate and say, you know what, okay, he's going to man mark. He's going to be a man on whoever wide receiver one is on the other side, but everybody else is playing zone, which is something that we did see prior to Tyson Campbell being traded a little bit. And then, you know, the Jags just had Buster Brown, who's a great zone corner. That's why he had 5 interceptions, led the SEC his final season at Arkansas. Jarian Jones will tell you that he can play man, and I believe he can, but he played damn well in zone, especially because the Jags asked their nickel corner to go both inside and outside, depending on if you are in nickel or in base downs. And again, you lost Jordan Lewis as well, who I also believe that they think can play in man too. So I think a lot of it was the personnel, but I think some of it is a preference too.
Yeah, I wonder if that number doesn't go up if Travis is healthy next year, and also what does the other side look like? So I want to say, even going back to that Josh Allen number that I mentioned about time to throw and time to pressure, like that might be a result of the fact that and the Bills don't have a wide receiver core that you feel like you desperately need to have, you know, manned up for sure. But let's say you are more in man. Well, then the issue that we talked about with regards to pressure and sacks, maybe if the coverage is locking those guys down more specifically and there's less space and there are fewer windows for the quarterback to get the ball out, then maybe some of those half seconds, like the pressure does turn into a sack. So I wonder if the two maybe aren't related to a degree. And I defer, there are reasons that they're doing this for sure, but that rate does stand out to me. And I do think that as a general rule, when you look at the teams that run, are in man coverage at the highest rate, those are the better defenses in the league. And that's not to say that that's completely and totally, but like the Browns are number 1. The Texans are actually lower on that list than I thought they would be. I want to say that they're like 8th or something like that. The Broncos are up there. Like when you have lockdown corners, which is obviously the goal would be to have the best edge rushers and the best lockdown corners, and let's have strengths across the defense. But if you do have better coverage on the back end, then obviously both sides impact one another. So I would be interested to see. I'll be keeping my eye on that man coverage rate next season to see if that goes up.
Love it. 2 more for you. The first is going to be about just tight ends. This is league wide, but if you do have a stat within Bills or Jags land that you want to hit on, let me know. I'll keep this screen up. Otherwise, we'll go to the 2 screen. But is there something on our Sumer Live feed that we want to hit on that front?
Let me see. In terms of 12, not really. I think like the Bills weren't in 12. I mean, this is a preference thing. Sometimes teams run very little 12. They'll run 13 and not 12. The Niners run 21 instead of either, so it's just kind of a, what is your sub package? In terms of, I don't think it's necessarily a notable thing for this game because I think it's about prioritization. Like if you are thinking about as a defense, and I know that the Jaguars, had some tight ends who had good games against them this season.
Yep.
So I don't think that is cause for concern, because if I were to rank, if I'm a defensive coordinator, and I'm so far away from being that, but if I were to do that, I would say, what am I okay conceding, like in order of importance? And the tight end would be really high on the list of things that I'm okay with that person catching the ball, largely because of the depth of that catch and your ability to contain it after the fact. I'm thinking if I'm the Bills, I don't really want to be in 12 or 13 all that much, because I don't want the defenses closer to the line, because I want space for James Cook and Josh Allen to run potentially if need be. Ideally, I think if if you're them, you want defenses in man trying to stop their passes, and particularly their deep passes, but their wide receivers just aren't threatening enough in that manner. So as far as this game is concerned, I don't necessarily think it's a notable storyline in terms of the multi-tight end kind of theme of the season, because it does feel like we've talked about it a lot, particularly with the Rams and the Seahawks. I think it's the answer to what teams have done on defense the last few years. And that's always the fun thing about the NFL, is that like you see a trend happening and then you go, how did we answer that trend? And what's the answer to the answer? And so we've talked in the last few years about teams using more 2 high safety looks on defense. The idea being obviously don't beat us deep. And there was a lot of talk about Patrick Mahomes kind of changing things. Like this is you go too high against him. And then it filters out. Putting extra tight ends on the field is a way to force the defense to adjust out of that look. Most teams run more frequently than they pass in those looks. So the defense is more likely to adjust back to base, which is where you want to get them so that you can pass the ball more efficiently. And every once in a while when you get that look, you throw out of that look. Because so if this is what the Seahawks do, I think, so well. This year, they run a ton. And Mia, when I tell you they don't run well, like I know people are really thrown off by this because they run for yardage at the end of the game, but that's because they run for volume. They literally rank 29th in EPA per rush. They are one of the least efficient rushing teams in the NFL.
Interesting.
The reason that they run so frequently is to get the defense into the looks that they want them in. And they use their tight ends when they go multi-tight end set to as another way to sell that look, right? And then when they do get the look they want, I would imagine it goes, Sam, wait, just like, so you're going to run, or wait until they give you the look that you want,
Crowd the box.
And then you're very efficient with your passes when you do actually pass. The Seahawks are 8th in EPA per pass, meaning they're the 8th most efficient team when they throw the ball in terms of picking up chunk yards, despite the fact that they have the 3rd fewest pass attempts on the season in the NFL. So I think teams might study what teams like the Rams and Seahawks are doing this year and maybe move in that direction. But the NFL is always going to be an 11 personnel league first, because it's the one that gets the most passing assets on the field, and you have to pass in order to win. So I think that this ultimately comes down to, in terms of moving forward, not so much are we moving in terms of more 12 or 13. It's just maybe it highlights the need for a sub package to get defenses out of that look that benefits them, limiting your passing game. Right. You just want, like I said, Shanahan runs a lot of 21. If you want to go for a resurgence of the fullback, we could go in that direction. Like there's lots of different ways to do this. But I think that that's one of it's been one of the most interesting storylines for me to track, actually. And for the Rams in particular, I just went on a nerdy deep dive yesterday about what their 12 and 13 rates were in the last few years. And they were at the bottom of the league, and in some cases last in the league in 12 or 13 rate since 2022. So going year by year, 22, 23, 24, like they didn't do it. They didn't do it at all. So there is something really specific about this season that made them pivot to that to unlock their offense. And I think that it's another indication, not that anyone needs more indication, of Sean McVay's coaching brilliance. This is the kind of thing that people aren't going to talk about and give him credit for, because I think people focus primarily on like game management type stuff when they're, or like turning something around. And since the Rams were already good and expected to be good, people aren't going to talk about him, the coach of the year conversation, for this reason. But if I were to talk about him in that type of a conversation, this is exactly what I would talk about.
And the reason I wanted to talk about it was before Liam, well, actually it was right after Liam had been hired, or maybe it was in the process of him being hired here. Sean did an interview and he said he loved some of the personnel groupings that Liam Coen was deploying in Tampa. He loved some of the run formations. And then when the Rams draft Terrence Ferguson with their first draft pick this past April, James Gladstone was on the record being like, yeah, wasn't surprised. That's the way they're headed. And so the fact that Rams, the original, the OG out on the West Coast, is doing something gives me pause to say, is that something we could see Liam pivot to in the years to come, which is my final question of, now that you've gotten to see the Jags in primetime in the postseason, well, I guess not primetime, but it still counts, Lindsay. what did you come away from this game saying, this is where I think they're headed and thus they need to get blank this offseason?
So first and foremost, I think my headline is that and I don't want to sound like Tony Romo necessarily, was like, maybe Jags fans fully appreciated that. I was like, this is weird. Like, obviously they're good and could go on a run. They're in the playoffs. But anyway, I think that they are not a fluky playoff team. And I think that that's the most important thing, because I think that this year was a down year for the AFC. So there could be people out there casually just going, yeah, but they got in a bad year and it doesn't really mean anything. And the division isn't our favorite and blah. I think that what I saw from the Jaguars suggests that they are building in a sustainable way. I love what I saw from Liam Coen. I love what I'm seeing and hearing from James Gladstone. I think that all of these indicate a good process that will ultimately lead to the results on the field in terms of win-loss in a more in a sustained manner. I loved the trade. I loved the trade to the Browns mid-season. I like Gladstone's willingness to say, this isn't working for us. We let's put ourselves in a position to be nimble moving forward. I have liked all of his moves so far. In terms of moves this offseason, I'm really interested to see, maybe not in terms of a move, though maybe, but looking ahead to next year, Brian Thomas Jr. is somebody who I was flummoxed by this season. And then when they brought in Jacoby Myers, that's the trade of the year. I mean, why did I go with the cornerback trade first? Jacoby Myers changed the offense. It was brilliant. It just opened things up for them to do. I mean, Parker Washington, it opened up things for, there was so much value in bringing him and putting him on the field, doing the things that he does well. It was brilliant. But after that, we saw BTJ's go routes go up. We went back to those kinds of routes for him, which worries me about his strengths as a wide receiver moving forward. We didn't see the production that we necessarily wanted from him this season. And then when we started to see it towards the end, it was on those kinds of routes in a more frequent way.
As more of an X or a Z, not even so much a Z, but more of just he's a vertical deep shot and that's all he is.
I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying that's what the numbers suggest to me that I'm now curious about looking into further. I want to, in the NFL in 2025, 2026, I think you need to be able to work the middle of the field. You need to be able to do some of that, I think some of the best wide receivers in the league right now are not what they used to be in terms of big, strong on the sideline. I think, Puka and Amon-Ra St. Brown and some of the ways that they are so versatile, that is their strength. And then the fact that they can also work along the sideline and run those routes, you just want that kind of versatility with your number one. And I'm worried a little bit, and I have not. I intend to dive into this further, so I don't want to say anything.
Good, so we'll have you back on the show at some point to discuss this, because it is, someone asked the question today, not is he on the trade block, but what is his future here, especially with Jacoby Myers signing an extension with Jacksonville.
Which, thank God he did.
And Parker
I love him.
by the way, I don't know.
I mean, that emergence, what?
Well, and while James Gladstone would not tip his cap because he said, I want to wait until the league year starts. And so Parker technically has been in the NFL for 3 years. He did say that it's very important that they are aligned with both Parker Washington and Brenton Strange, which is why the next reporter said, okay, well, we know how you feel about Jacoby Myers because the money talks. You've now said you have to be aligned with those two. We know you clearly have invested in Travis Hunter, although he's going to have an emphasis on corner. But where does that leave Brian Thomas Jr.? And so it's an interesting storyline to follow. But then you couple that, and that's why I asked about the tight ends with Strange. I'm fascinated to see, and knowing Jacksonville, I think, has other holes, which I'm sure you're going to run through, or at least areas that they can grow, Lindsay. I don't want to hedge my bet way too early, but is Liam Coen going to say, I need a tight end on day 2 because I need to complement someone off of Brenton Strange? Because Sean McVay is doing it. I'm just very interested to see if that's a reality, because they do want to give Brian Thomas Jr. a third season, a second season with this regime to try to figure it out.
Well, I don't think he would do it because specifically, but I think if the reasons that Sean McVay did it for his offense this year, if those are present in Jacksonville, then I could see him thinking that way, because that's what he's learned under. I think a couple of things. So from a wide, the way you would do this is if you feel like your run game might need you need a reason to pull the defense back to open things up for your wide receivers. And by the way, Kyron has never, well, in the past, he's not been an efficient running back. His efficiency numbers were not particularly strong, which is why I wondered whether they were going to re-sign him or not. And then they were better this year. I wonder if that is just painting a picture of like they made these moves to make the run game kind of have an environment. I think it all kind of worked in concert, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But also, so if you have BTJ, maybe you're looking for like a cheap way to kind of buy yourself another option in the passing game and also to boost the run game and have it all work together. I could see them maybe going for a tight end if they decided that that was something that they needed rather than like go get another wide receiver. They're more expensive, right? Like, so this could be a cost allocation. One of my questions with the Jaguars this year is going to be about Etienne. And I hate being this person, even though I'm literally volunteering right now because you didn't even ask to be this person. The running backs getting paid is a real problem. And it is a real roster building thing that is legit. Like, it's not just people who hate running backs or anything like that. Like, I want everyone to get paid. I want everyone to have their best lives. But particularly because it's Gladstone that's there, I just wonder if that's the smartest roster building strategy. He needs
Especially
a new deal.
when you have Tootin already on the roster and you have LaQuint Allen.
And you have the draft, and you don't even need to use a high pick like they did on Etienne. I know this particular
regime, right.
Exactly. This regime did not, but it's about allocation of resources, and they're upside down right now in terms of cap space. They're in the red. How much money does he want? Like, what are we talking? Because if you'll take a mid-range deal, maybe 8-9 a year, then I think that I could see the Jaguars getting that done just for continuity. If he's a good locker room guy, better than I, like, do people like, is there something tied to like people need him back, want him back? This is going to mess up some chemistry. But other than that, I just think that the production wasn't so special in his regard that I think the reasons that the Jaguars took this leap offensively this year had very little to do with the run game. I think the run game goes with the leaps. Like, when the offense takes steps forward, then the running backs tend to look better. The fact that he was 28th in yards per carry, I just think you can find, there are so many examples of guys that you can get at the running back position late in drafts that you can literally make your feature back. Kyron was a 5th rounder. Bucky Irving was a 4th rounder. Jalen Warren was undrafted. Kyle Monangai in Chicago this year is getting plenty of run, and he was a 7th rounder. So you can get a running back cheaply and plug that guy in. The fact that you already have Tootin makes me think that from a leverage standpoint, I wonder what Etienne's leverage is. I think that the team might be looking to maybe do that more cheaply, or that's a way that they could save some money if they decided to do that.
Lindsay, I could talk to you for another 43 minutes. I said I'd keep you 20 to 25, but I know we both have to run. I appreciate you taking time to hang out with us in Club 904. We will do it again soon, especially once you have that BTJ analysis project that you're working on, because that's going to be a massive talking point in Jacksonville, for better or worse, until the season kicks off again in September. Before you go, remind the folks what the cool stuff cooking over at Sumer Sports is and where we can find your work here during the playoffs.
Yeah, thank you. So the Sumer Live dashboard is available at sumersports.com/live. Also, during the week, if you just want to look at season-long stats, you can go to sumersports.com and click on the data tab. Those are also ungated and free. So you can go look at where the Jaguars ranked in all sorts of different filterable categories. And we also have a podcast called The Sumer Sports Show that you can get wherever you get your podcast. This week, we did a deep dive on who would have made our all-pro roster. So if you're interested in who maybe shows up on that team from Jacksonville, you can give that one a listen.
Dang it. Now I wish we had more time so we could talk Devin Lloyd. Story for another time. That's why we'll have you on again. Lindsay, thanks so much